Welcome back. This is your man Warrior, and this is another patron roster review. This is Felix. What's happening? Now, we are going to go over his arena team, what he should Zeta, the Rancor, and Heroic AAT. There's a lot to cover. I'm going to go as quickly as possible, but for Zeta, it really depends on how much damage you want to do and who you've got available to you as to which is the first Zeta you should do. So, first off, on your arena team, you've got a bunch of good characters that you can choose from, but I see there not being a lot of synergy with Darth Maul as the lead. I know you like Darth Maul, but you don't have him Zetaed, so he's not a Zeta leader, and that's really where he shines, and so you may not be getting nearly as much traction as if he was Zetaed. That is a Zeta possibility for arena if you want to do that, and it will take your game to the next level, but my suggestion is actually move Wedge into the leadership role, so that way you get all of the additional damage and health regeneration and turn meter from him and his leadership ability, and have Biggs on the team and have Emperor Palpatine on the team with your Boba Fett that you have now. And then I would add Shore Trooper. You have no tank, and with these characters, to keep characters like Biggs and Wedge alive long enough for them to actually do what they're going to do, you're going to need an auto taunt, and you don't have an auto taunt like Baze, but you do have a 4-star Shore Trooper just sitting here at the bottom, just chilling, doing nothing. He's as viable at 4 stars as he is at 7 stars, and he's going to keep your team alive both by auto taunting, and he can do a secondary taunt, which he heals everybody and puts critical hit immunity on everyone, which creates a ton more durability. So for your arena team, the number one thing is you have no tank. You've got to get a tank in there. So Wedge lead, Biggs, Boba Fett, Emperor Palpatine, and Shore Trooper. Try that out, but you got to get your Shore Trooper geared. So gear this bad boy up, and you're going to be excited. Now, if you don't want to do your Darth Maul as a Zeta because you're going to pull him from your arena team possibly, then I would recommend, because you're focused on the Heroic raids and the Rancor raids, the AAT and Rancor, both Heroic, I would recommend you focus on Zeta, either Vader or Cody. And the reason for that is Vader is going to be the character that's going to help you through the Rancor. He also will help you in the Heroic AAT. So he's good in both of the raids, and his Zeta is really required in both of those raids to get all the additional damage that he would be able to apply. So, and because he's one of your best characters, he's a very safe bet for the Zeta, okay? So that would be my number one recommendation. My number two recommendation, and you're not quite there, would be Cody. And the reason for that is I can see what you're doing. You're building a clone team. I can see you're gearing them up, you're starting them up. So this is more down the road. This is like 3 months down the road or longer. And so this would be the second Zeta that I would probably focus on, or focus on that Zeta material in 3 months. But Cody for sure, because you got to have him Zetaed for this team to work, and you can use them in phase 2 or phase 4, and that would be a phenomenal team to work towards for the raids, because that's what you're really focused on, are the raids and the damage you want to do. You can do anywhere from 2 million to 7 million, depending upon how highly geared and how fast you have these characters in those phases, and you can become a massive contributor towards your guild by utilizing these characters. Now, you are about halfway there. You've got to still get their star or their rarity rate up. They got to get to 7 stars to be used, and you got 1 more star for Echo, 2 more for Clone Sergeant. He's who you got to worry about, and then 1 more for Cody. And then, of course, they're at gear 5, 6, 7, and 8. You're going to have to get them up higher, obviously, to gear 10. Is really what I recommend for the Heroic, and then hopefully at some point you can get them to gear 11. So these would definitely be it. It depends on how important the raid is to you, and you told me it's really, really, really important, so these guys should be really, really important to you, but I know your arena team is important as well. So this is the team, and then of course you can use this team in phase 2 or phase 4, just like you could with your Rebels. So this is going to be the phase 2 or phase 4 team. Now, when we talk about the Rancor in a minute, we'll go over a free-to-play type team you can build for that. But in this, we're talking about the AAT. This is phase 4. I recommend Rebels for phase 2 or phase 4, and you've got your top Rebels. They're all 7 stars, so technically, this is the only team that you have ready for a heroic raid. Everything else isn't ready for the heroic raid yet, and so you really can't contribute a ton to a heroic tank raid yet, but that's what this video is about, is to tell you the teams to focus on. So over the next 30 to 90 days, you can really focus on these 4 teams and try and get these guys all to 7 stars and their gear up for the raids. But the rebels on the top, you would literally just use the top 5, your Stormtrooper Han, Admiral Akbar, Wedge, Lando, and Biggs, and that is the best team currently that you have for the heroic. You could use them in phase 2 if your team starts doing heroic raids and they need more help in the push in phase 2, then use them there. And if they need more push in the end, which is more than likely the case because everyone's lost everyone, then you're going to probably want to use them in phase 4. So it just depends on what your team's going to need as to which phase you're going to use them in. Make sure you're talking to your team and asking them which phase is more important for now. As far as phase 1, the phase 1 team you do have, it is going to be viable in a heroic raid because they're 7-star. They're just not going to do a ton of damage because the durability is not there. But the good news is you have I'm a Gun Die, and he is like one of the 2 best leaders for phase 1 for damage dealing. You're just going to have to gear him up a little more, but I'm a Gun Die. You could use your Luminara for the healing and for the damage that she can do. Jedi Knight Anakin, Ayla Secura, and then Qui-Gon. I would not use Mace Windu. His damage is underwhelming in comparison to the other characters out there, and you will have a Dispel with Qui-Gon Jinn. So your top row minus Mace Windu, that'll be your phase 1 team. And then for phase 3, I would do an Empire team. I really recommend an Empire team, and you're almost there for the Empire team. So really, you could use Emperor Palpatine as the leader, TIE Fighter pilot, Darth Vader, Royal Guard. There's 4, and then you just need a 5th character that's a 7-star tank to be put in here, so you can look up all your tanks and figure out which tank you want to throw in here. Or you could put another very tanky character that you have. He doesn't have to be a tank, just someone with a ton of health and protection that you don't mind dying, but preferably another tank, so that way you have a taunting tank capable of helping absorb damage in phase 4 while your Emperor Palpatine and TIE Fighter pilot are trying to go. So as far as phase 3, 1, and 4, you've got teams that are almost there. You've got them at 7-star, gear 8 and 9, and so they're going to do some damage, not a lot, but you can at least contribute. Well, with your clones, you're not there yet. You're going to have to get them up. So they're probably your #1 priority because they're not even usable at this point, and the other teams are at least usable. But there's a lot of characters in that. I just suggested to you 20 characters, so I'm not going to give you any other characters to gear or farm in this video, strictly just those. Now let's move on to the Rancor raid. Best free-to-play team that is still utilized today for the Rancor to get a lot of damage is a Teebo lead because of all the turn meter reduction capability, and the stealth mechanism has been fixed, and so he works more efficiently than he used to. So Teebo lead, you have him 7-star, you can use him in this team. #2 is going to be Qui-Gon Jinn, but you are going to have to put his Omegas on his basic for his turn meter reduction. But Qui-Gon Jinn would be a #2 turn meter reducer that will work effectively. Now remember, his turn meter reduction doesn't happen every time, so no matter how high you get his potency, it's not going to matter. There will be times, even with perfect potency, that he still doesn't apply that. #3 is Rex. He's a turn meter reducer as well. He can get rid of about 1/4 of the turn meter each on his basic. And so between Rex and Qui-Gon Jinn and Teebo, you got 3 characters that are doing turn meter reduction. Then you've got TIE Fighter pilot for a lot of damage, and he can put that tenacity down. Now the reason why that's important for this team is the Rancor has got a lot of tenacity, and you're going to need to get that down. Even if you put potency up, tenacity down almost assuredly allows for you to be able to apply that turn meter reduction, and so it's critical in this raid that you put tenacity down so you can do what you need to do with the turn meter reduction. And lastly, Phasma, she's there for the speeding of your team. She can give turn meter to everybody, speed them up, and get them to go faster. And she can apply speed down. And so she can make sure that the Rancor is going slower and slower. So you want this Rancor to go slower and to be less tenacious, and that's where your TIE Fighter Pilot and Captain Phasma are going to come into play. And for these characters, all 5 of them, you're going to want, for the most part, potency, because the 3 turn meter reducers need potency for applying the turn meter reduction, Phasma for her speed down, and TIE Fighter Pilot. And you're going to want to make TIE Fighter Pilot as fast as possible and Phasma pretty fast, and then all the other characters, you're going to want to make them pretty fast. For the Rancor Heroic, you really want your goal to be 200 speed or above. Now, I know for someone that doesn't spend a whole lot of money in the game, that's pretty difficult. Actually, it's very difficult, but that's a goal, right? That's what goals are for. You set them really high and you strive. So that's what you're going to strive towards. Now, with the 4 AAT raids and the Rancor raid that I just gave you, you now have 25 characters. If you take away the uniques, you've got 23 characters, or 22 characters that you're going to have to focus on. That's 22 characters I've suggested for all phases of all raids. That's a lot of characters to work on at one time. So even though you mark them all as favorites, stick them in your favorites and work on them, you still have to have a priority list within that priority list of who you're going to really focus your energy on each day and each week. And so if you just focus on all of them, you'll never get any of them finished. You're just going to be overwhelmed and you'll have too much. So put them in your favorites so you know who you're working on, but then focus on 1 or 2 characters at a time that you feel like are the ones you need to finish off, or ones that are the farthest behind, whatever you feel like for your priority. And then again, I would either Zeta Vader or Cody, but I would say Vader because he's your highest. He's going to help you in both the raids, and he's ready for his Zeta, where Cody is not ready for his Zeta. And I wouldn't waste it on Maul right now because the team you're using, or the team I'm suggesting, doesn't even include Darth Maul, which was the Wedge, Biggs, Boba Fett, Emperor Palpatine, and Shore. My suggestion for this month, right now, the number 1 would be Arena and would be Shore Trooper. I would get him up and get him geared up so that way you can stick him in your team, because like I said, you've got a Shore Trooper sitting down here at 4 stars just doing nothing, and he is one of the top 3 best tanks in the game. So you definitely want to get him in your team lineup. Well, I hope this helps you, Felix. I hope this is going to get you lined up and situated. Make sure if you have any other additional questions like you have been, just hit me up on our private Discord and I can answer any of those questions. As always, keep your gaming on. Warrior out.